Okay, for the sake of these exercises, I don't mind having strong outlines. So I'm going to go ahead and just go over the lines that I made. You know, maybe rough, maybe smooth, whatever, but relatively dark for now, just for the sake of these exercises. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in some of the detail, because that's really going to make a big difference as to other people's perceptions of my drawing. So in other words, instead of just having one line for the roof, I'll make a double line, and that way it really looks like the roof has a physical presence to it. And I'll make that roof overhang just a little bit. I can fake that in. I'll just follow along those same lines of perspective, and that'll be just fine. Nobody's going to really know the difference if it wasn't absolutely perfect. Okay, and so forth and so on. So here I'm going to go ahead and just fill in these lines, and while I'm doing that, I'll pause the video again, and I'll be right back. Alrighty then, so as you can see, I've made an outline on most of the major sort of edges and stuff like that. And so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do some shading, because I want you to have value in your work. When you're doing a drawing, even if it's an exercise, unless I specifically say otherwise, we should be practicing shading. And so this is a place where this wooden pencil just comes in so handy, because it's such a quicker shader than the mechanical one, because I can use this edge. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start taking this edge and lightly go towards the top, all the way across, and work it just like I was working my value scale, and bring it on down, bring it on down. Doesn't have to take a long time. And, you know, we're not making totally finished artwork. This is still just an exercise, even though it is a complete drawing. And you can see how I'm taking my stroke and going off the page. It's very annoying when you hit the page like that. It's come boom, boom, boom. So that's why go clean off. Lift it up and go clean off all the way. Okay. And let it get a little bit lighter as it goes towards that center. Remember, that's that atmospheric perspective. And so just like when I was making my value scale, I've kind of gone over it once, and then I'll go over it more just to darken things up a little bit where they need to be dark. Boom, boom, boom. That's all. Just coming on down. Oh, forgot this over here. Okay, good enough, good enough. Do that whole sky at once. So that's got my sky started. And then for the ground, same thing, where it's going to start off darker at the base and just coming on up. And if I get everything perfect, that's okay. If I don't get everything absolutely perfect, that's okay too. And it's going to get lighter and lighter as it goes up towards that horizon, all the way out there, middle of nowhere. All right, and so just like before, I'm going to get that a little bit darker. In fact, I'll probably do the ground a little bit darker than the sky, at least in this one. And maybe even I'll start giving it a little bit of shape as I go up. Start making that texture. You know, we did good old exercise number 13 in our drawing intensive, and that had all about doing with making texture. And remember, the takeaway from that was sort of start general and get more specific. Okay, so there's our sort of texture. And then for this maybe this road here, I made this a little bit separate. So I'll come in and I'll give it its own value scale. In this case, maybe a little bit lighter than the rest there. And so then I'll just keep going. Maybe a little bit darker. Maybe some of the areas a little bit bumpier. Maybe it goes down a little bit. The road's a little bit more worn. So I'm thinking about that as I make that. Right. A little bit, little bit. we go. So that's adding just a little bit of character to that ground down there. But darker, darker towards the bottom. And lighter towards the top. There it is. See, it's starting to look three-dimensional already, isn't it? And we'll do the same thing here. But it's just a little different. And, you know, I could give it a little bit more detail here and there, maybe. Okay, so now I'm using the tip of my pencil here to give it a little bit of character. Just scribbling. That's all I'm doing. I'm not worried about making every little bump and everything else. Just scribbling a little bit, just to give it a little bit of definition, as if there were little tiny forms, making all the definition of the rough dirt that's around there. You know, you'll see that, you know, as I'm teaching you to draw, a lot of the stuff that I show you is going to be, you know, kind of technical, a little bit tight. I will admit it. I'm a little tight. But also, at the same time, a little loose. Get a little loose. It's okay. Right? And you can see that's just going back towards that horizon line there. Good enough, right? Maybe a little bit of stuff in this road here as well. Just a little bit. Remember, very first lesson we did light, medium, and dark, didn't we? So you should have a little bit of control over the amount of pressure that you put on your pencil and your line quality, right? So these lines are kind of scribbly, but they're also kind of medium, kind of light, kind of dark, right? All those different lines that I was sort of showing you that first time around. And using that whole value scale. Okay, so now we've got our light coming from back here, right? So that means that this side would be a little bit darker. So we're going to go ahead and darken this in a little bit. See, it doesn't have to take forever to do a little bit of shading. Not at all. Not a big deal at all. See? And now when I'm shading it, I'm purposely going in the directions that I think that those boards would go. Because I think that the siding on this would go up and down. And later on, if I wanted to, I could even give the impression of siding just by drawing some relatively even spaced vertical lines. And that's going to give me the impression that there is siding on here. Doesn't have to be even. Like, I mean, you could go do like a machine, but you don't have to. Like I say, loosen up a little bit. Maybe I treated this door a little separate, so it's still in the shade, so it's still gonna be, let's say, darker. But maybe the door is a slightly different color. Who knows? Maybe even in here is a little bit different color, right? Whatevs. Okay. And then same thing here. Now this is not gonna be as dark, is it? So if this is more in the light, this is not going to be as dark. Now it's maybe not directly hitting the sun. I'm not sure. Not sure. Okay, now I'll be a little bit more careful as I go around those windows. And I've already given them just a little bit of color. So that's cool. And then this building over here, I'll go ahead and do same thing. And I purposely, if you noticed it, didn't put a hard line right here where it met the ground. And maybe just a little bit in there, but not a hard line, right? Because that ground's uneven. These ones I give a hard line to, whatever. But that'll just make the buildings feel a little bit more planted in the earth. Okay. And a little bit here, but not as much. A little bit around those windows. Maybe a little bit darker here. So I have, some contrast in those values. Okay, got a funny little line there, but you know what? I'm not going to worry about it because it's just an exercise. And here, I'm even going to put a little bit of value in the clouds. You'll see why in a second. Okay, so here we go. So one more thing I want to add value to. Remember, when we were doing our stuff, it was both shading and shadows. So if I say like, okay, not only can I create form from that perspective, but I can also create shadow. So watch this. I'm going to line this up. I'm just going to have the shadows come straight back. Nothing tricky. Nothing tricky on this. Give myself a little guideline right here. Maybe just coming off of it just a little bit. But I put it off the corner just a little bit, not directly on the corner, just because, you know, it'll look nicer that way. Okay. And so then this here also, we'll get a shadow just as if the light's coming from back here. And guess what? We'll darken up this a little bit more. And that instantly gives us a sense of a shadow, instantly giving us a lot more depth. It's just way cooler all of a sudden by doing that. See how that's differentiated itself now? Okay, so once again, just coming off that paper. All right. Okay. And if I was concerned about Mr. Coon's drawing boards, I'd just take another piece of paper and come off of there. But that's probably okay. We can wash that a little bit, just as long as you're respectful of the boards and don't make them too much of a mess. And here we'll just make that a little bit uneven. Get rid of that little guideline that I made. Darken it up at its core a little bit. You know, remember that whole core shadow thing? There we go. We'll do the same thing over here. Darken that shadow in just a little bit. Alrighty. And if you're bad like Mr. Coon here, maybe you'll come by and, you know, even erase those boards up a little bit before you turn them in. Who knows? And now, though, you know, think about it. So maybe under the eaves, right? Wouldn't you have a little bit of darker just right under the eaves? We'll get a little shadow right there. Ooh, look at that. That made a huge difference. Just that little bit. I'm telling you. The difference between something that's like, oh, you know, that's okay, and something that's like brilliant, very small difference. Very small. Under these eaves here, probably have a little bit of shadow, right? So give it a little bit of shadow right under there. Who knows, maybe even under these guys, but we won't get too crazy. Okay, and maybe a little bit under this one. Oh, man, that just popped the whole drawing. That one right there just did it. It just did the whole dang thing. Okay, so now here's the little special thing just for you guys that are actually paying attention is remember what I said about the eraser can be an excellent tool for drawing. So I'm going to use the eraser a little bit here. Okay. And let's see, before I do that, let's do this. I'm going to take, because I'm tired of using my fingers, and I got a little piece of paper here, and I'm going to smudge this up just a little bit, just to smooth things out. Oh, there it goes. Just to smooth it off just a little bit. That'll be all right. Just blend in a little bit. All right, not too much, not too much. It's pretty powerful. Ooh, but that did it just a little bit. Okay, cool. But anyways, back to this whole eraser thing, right? So now I'm going to use this eraser to just clean things up a little bit. After that smudging, so a little bit there. That's where that light's hitting it. Give it a little highlight here and there, right? Maybe I want to just add a little bit of, ooh, look at that, just that little bit of light. I'm not even gonna do that all smooth. Maybe over here, just a little bit of light as this is hitting this over here. So just a little bit, right? You can do some crazy stuff, make some crazy textures with an eraser. Like up in these clouds right here, for instance. You know, clouds are crazy, man. Just look at them sometimes. Right? That's observational drawing. Just draw clouds sometimes. Gotta draw quick though. And you'll see like how they do the opposite of what you would think. Sometimes they're just like a standard form and they've got a highlight and a shadow that just makes perfect sense. But sometimes they've got this crazy light that's just around the edges of things. right? It's all the light that's bouncing around in the cloud and refracting out and giving you this crazy light. It's cool, right? So using that eraser to give us a little bit of stuff going on in those clouds, a little bit, right? Back here for sure. And hey, did you notice this? That on the clouds, everything here went up to the horizon line, right? But with the clouds, since they're above the horizon, everything goes down. So this cloud is further away than this one up here, right? Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of shading back into that. Otherwise, we're going to don't hardly even see that cloud. Okay, there it is. All right, cool. Good enough. Okay, and then in here too. And remember, this horizon should be lighter. So I'm going to go ahead and you know what? I'm going to take out a little bit right there and even a little bit right here. So that horizon isn't even like a solid thing. I don't even hardly see where that land hits the sky. It's very light, very light. Not a definite strong transition. Like here it's very phony looking, right? Because I got that straight O line right there. But I'm going to just erase that out a little bit more on top, a little bit less on the bottom. Make that transition not so darn solid. A little bit, not too much. All right. And that's putting the magic on it right there as it really goes off into the distance. So I hope that you've liked that. That's, good enough. But we've taken that linear perspective, 1 point perspective. We've come off that. Okay, we've come on the inside too. Remember, the stuff on the sides has to go everything back. Your verticals, they just stay up and down. Make a picture out of it. Remember your atmospheric perspective, darker at the top and the bottom and lighter towards the center. That makes a huge difference right there. Your shadows, your shading, and finally, I want you to label it. So this one is perspective drawing number 2. And what is it, right? I want you to label it. So it's 1 point perspective. Still just doing 1 point perspective. Wait until we get into 2 point perspective. Okay, and what's it doing? It's using interior shapes. That's these interior shapes. Okay, and atmospheric perspective. You want to see some just absolutely crazy perspective paintings, man. Them guys from the Renaissance. Okay, so here I'll just erase a little bit out right here so I can see it nice and clear. But you know what I want. I want your name, and I want it down here. I don't want it up here somewhere. That's not where I told you to put it. I want it down here. Remember, the secret to life, following directions. It really is. It really is. I know. You want to be a rebel. But you know what? You got to learn the rules before you break them. Okay, your last name, your first name, your period number. So, hope you do a good job with this. And trust me, we're going to get a lot crazier than this real soon.